All right. Usually I'll start out on the big screen, but we went ahead and shared our screen. Welcome to NACWE, the National Association of Christian Women Entrepreneurs. This entire month we were talking about branding. So we kicked branding off last week, and then for the next 3 weeks, August, let me get this right, starting today, August 8th, August 15th, and August 22nd, Janie Owen-Bugh, one of our members, will talk to us about branding and go deep. So get your notepads out and get ready. We're recording this call. We'll pray and get started with an introduction for NACWE, and then I'll unshare this screen and Janie can pop up and get started. Father God, we're so grateful to, honestly, I'm frustrated sometimes as an entrepreneur. There just seem to be too many things to do, and I just can't seem to prioritize, and where do I even begin? But we're grateful, Lord, that when we take a step of faith, you honor that, you bless that, you reward that, as long as it's a step as an entrepreneur that brings you glory and honor. So that's our fervent prayer today, is that every step of the way, especially this month as we learn about branding, and at the end of this month as we do a big special on self-care, we will bring you pleasure every step of the way. I pray for every person who will pop in here shortly and who will watch the replay later. Lord, I pray for their entrepreneur endeavors, that you'd give them blessing, that you'd expand their borders, that you'd take them to places they probably never thought they would go, and that more importantly, they would reach people with services, products, and programs that are needed, and that in the reaching there would be great relationships established, and all those relationships would draw people to Christ. We ask these things, Lord, in Christ's name. Amen. All right. Let's zoom through this. Y'all know on the second, third, and fourth Tuesdays of every month, we do members only calls packed with educational information. Hey, Kimberly. And on the first Tuesday of every month, we open it up to everyone. And particularly this month of August, we will open the fifth Tuesday of the month up for literally to non-members as well. We're going to open it up to everybody. And Kimberly, who's at the bottom of your picture screen there, and I give a big wave, will host that. Wave from you, Kimberly. We're watching for a wave. Wave. So all of the links that you need to find out where to find us and when are in our Facebook group, members only Facebook group, so you can find us there. Our goal is to connect, create, and collaborate. I also love to say our goal is to entertain, encourage, and educate as well, and equip as well. I might just need to put our 3 or 4 E's in our mission. So go ahead. Someone asked in our, and it's part of branding. I don't know. I looked through Janie's slides. I'm very excited, but I don't know if I saw this part, but I'm sure she'll talk about it. Someone in the group this morning asked, "What is your tagline?" And I thought that was fascinating. And I thought, I'm not sure we have a pretty set tagline for NACWE, so I put a new one in there to get people's opinions. Go ahead in the chat room. Tell us who you are today. Don't wait till the end. I always say wait till the end, but don't do that. Start interacting in there. Tell us who you are, what you're doing, what your tagline is, for sure, and where we can find you. Do a little 30-second commercial for yourself throughout the day. If we have some time at the end when we just get a chance to chat, it's one of my most favorite moments. We'll do that as well. We're getting ready to travel. Y'all have heard this before, so the quick version is Lou and I, and anybody else who wants to tag along, we will travel to Colorado, to Missouri, maybe through Oklahoma as we come back home and back to Texas, and we'll stop at strategic points and kind of meet NACWE women or women interested in being Christian women entrepreneurs and what we have to offer at different Mimi's cafes and coffee shops and things like that. We're getting ready to gear up on that in October. We'll travel to Alabama, not sure where we might stop on the way there or on the way back. It's a mystery. We'll see. And then in November or December, sort of between November and December, we'll do a Texas Live holiday celebration. We'll probably do it live, and you're welcome to come from afar, or we will, and or we'll do a virtual live presentation as well. lots of writing adventures going on. The most important one right now is our collaborative devotional book. We're very excited about. All of the authors were supposed to turn in their work yesterday, so we're on a roll. And then March down for our conference in our Dallas area next year. We're going to talk about branding this month, and I'm going to shut this thing down. Let me unshare, if that's even a word. And Janie, we're going to let you share your screen and get us started. And you're muted, so you're going to want to unmute you, or I can.
Okay. Yeah, I guess we both did at the same time, didn't we?
Okay. I'm so excited because, you know, Janie, every time we sit together, you take me out of the box. And I kind of need that. So that's my expectation. I've kind of had a sneak peek at the slides today, and that's my expectation, that you're going to take us to some new places. So the screen is all yours. The audience is all yours.
All righty then. Well, this is my branding, and that is my tagline: "Making your business look good is my job." And as you can see, it's also my initials, Janie Owen-Bugh, J-O-B. I'm a freelance graphic designer in Dallas, Texas, and one of my specialties is doing brand identity. So we're going to talk about branding. It's more than just a logo. And most people think of their brand as just a logo, but with the series that we've been doing with NACWE, I think more and more people are understanding that it's more than just a logo. Okay, so what is branding? Well, Merriam-Webster describes it as a category of products that are all made by a particular company and have a particular name. But branding, as what we're talking about, is basically can be defined as a way of identifying your business. It's how your customers recognize and experience your business. And basically, if it's a strong brand, it's more than just a logo, obviously. It's reflected in everything from your customer service style, the uniforms that your staff wears, the decorations of your facility, the architectural construction of it if you have a facility, your website, your marketing materials, and your advertising. All of that is part of your branding. There's lots of different types of branding. It all has to do with the overall brand and effect of your brand. But there's brand marketing, there's brand training, there's placement, there's voice, there's personality, strategy, identity. You look up Google on all that. There's analysis, there's plan, there's management. There are jobs for all, people actually have careers in all of those different areas of branding. So it's not just something that one person can do for you. It takes a team. Like they say, it takes a village. So we're going to talk about brand voice. And we talked about that in June, how the voice is basically, it's your story. And it's a purposeful, consistent expression of your brand through words. And so your voice is who you are as a person as well as who you are as a company. And for instance, what do you think the voice is for Pepsi? Like joy, youthful, fun. McDonald's, convenient, value, variety. Netflix has just taken a hold of the streaming market, and the vice president of product management, Gibson Biddle, said that brands should come from the heart. They are authentic and sustainable, and the best brands are built with the strength of the human spirit, not an ad campaign. I thought that was really good. And it reflects your personality. So let's talk about brand personality. What is brand personality? It's a set of emotional and associative characteristics connected to a company or brand name. It's how your clients or your customers see you as a company. So if your company, product, or service was human, how would you want it to be described? What are some adjectives that describe your business personality? For me, it would be like creative, intuitive, insightful, things like that. I want to bring out the best in people and in their experience and in their brand. I want people to see it for what it is and believe in it. So that would describe my business personality. So what is brand strategy? Well, it's basically a long-term plan for the development of a successful brand in order to achieve specific goals. So how do you turn that personality into a successful brand? Well, think of some famous successful brand strategies. Look at Apple. I mean, where they came from and where they are today, they are like, their brand strategy was to be the best and to always be innovative. And that has succeeded for them. Starbucks, I mean, we're paying $5 for coffee. I mean, that's crazy. But they had a strategy, and they got us to where we flocked to Starbucks to pay $5 for a cup of coffee. IKEA, simple, elegant, do it yourself, put it together yourself and get more. Airbnb, I mean, what a concept. Coca-Cola, timeless. It's been around forever, but it's still going strong. So one of the tools for a successful brand strategy is your brand identity. Brand identity dictates all the ways the brand appears to your audiences. It's your visual identity system, or brand identity system. These are terms that it's been referred to as. It's a package of visual elements that organizes the use of that your organization uses to communicate the brand, such as the graphic imagery or design elements, as I refer to it, your color system, the fonts that you use, and of course, yes, your logo. So it's a combined message that transmits all of those things: the name, the logo, the style, the visuals. Now I'm going to talk about brand identity from a designer's point of view. When I go in to create a brand identity for a company, this is the process I go through normally. There are times when we cut corners and we try to do something on the fly, and it works for some things, and sometimes that's what we have to do, but it's not the best way to get it done. This is the best process to get it done. This is what most designers use as a process to get it done. It's funny because I listed my process, and then I went and researched it online, and it's pretty much word for word the same as what I do. So apparently we all do it the same way, more or less. Okay, so we have a conference with the client. They bring us they say, we need a logo. And so we discuss the brand's personality. We discuss their voice. We discuss what it is they're looking for in a logo. And then I have a questionnaire that I have them fill out, or sometimes I get a brief from the customer because they already have a brand strategy. When they already have a brand strategy, then they can provide me with a brand identity brief. And so I know exactly what they're looking for and what they're trying to do with that strategy. If they don't have a strategy, then I give them a questionnaire to fill out, and it kind of shows me things about them and kind of gives me an idea of their personality, because sometimes they don't have a personality yet, or they don't know what their personality is. They have one, but they don't know what it is. And this questionnaire helps me dig deeper and figure it out. And then I research. I get to know the company. I get to know the competition. I look for inspiration and try to figure out what kind of things symbolize the company in my mind. And then I gear toward that. And I look at word mark. Does the company name lend itself to a word mark? Is there a symbol that symbolizes what the company is all about? I look for inspiration and research what the competition is doing and all of that. And then I brainstorm and sketch. And typically it's a process. Sometimes I have to come up with logos like that, so this process is compacted into a small amount of time. But what I typically like to do is let it swish around in my head for a few days. And I start, I think about, and I look around and I see things, and it makes me think about ideas. And then sometimes I carry a notebook and pencil with me everywhere I go. And sometimes I'll be sitting in waiting for my car to be done or something. And I'll go, oh, wait a minute. And like the other day I was at the bank waiting for a banker to talk to a banker. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, I have an idea. And I started sketching the idea. It was an idea for a flyer, but still same concept. I started sketching different ideas that have come up in my head. And, some of them, they look great in my head, but they don't come out on paper very well. So I was like, oh, forget that. And then I do some other ones. And finally, I realized that some of them have great potential. Okay, this one has good potential. This one has potential. So let's elaborate on those. And then I go to my computer and I work on Illustrator or Photoshop, whatever works best. And I start putting together the ideas that I sketched out. And I elaborate on them and refine them. I try not to spend too much time. I just want to get the concept, the idea, because I want to present the customer with 2 to 3 concepts. And so I'll present the customer with the 2 to 3 concepts, and they decide they like this part of this one and this part of that one, or they like this one and they just want a little tweak here and there, or they're just fine with this one and they don't want any changes. That's always nice. But I take their feedback and I finalize the design that they chose and make adjustments to it. And then once it's signed off by the customer, by the client, then I create all the files that I promised in the contract agreement. By the way, always has to be a contract agreement on these things. And once the files are done and delivered, then I start working on the branding guide, because they need to go ahead and have their files usually, and they're like anxious for them. And so then I work on the branding guide and give them the branding guide. And we're going to talk about all the elements of the logo in the next section. Today I'm going to just talk about logos as far as personality and famous logos, and we're going to do some case studies and talk about that next. But here's some examples of some professionally designed logos. The WWF, World Wildlife Foundation, the panda. That's just classic. It's the use of white space to show the panda, and the fact that if you've seen earlier versions of it, it was more realistic. There were lines where there's no lines, and there were also eyes in the panda's eyes. There were little eyes. You don't need it. They just simplified it, took it away. Disney classic. Starbucks we'll talk about more later. Virgin, just simple. Now, Harley Davidson motorcycles, that's a complex logo, but it works. And it works on their jackets, it works on everything, but because they have such a complex logo, they have to have different types of logos, smaller marks and other things to go with it. ABC's pretty classic. I remember when Toyota came out with that new logo a long time ago, they had this weird looking T before that. And then all of a sudden they came out with this, and I remember thinking, that's just 3 ovals and they form the shape of a T, and it looks so classy. Somebody came up with that, and it was so cool. FedEx, we're going to talk about a little bit more later. Coca-Cola, that's the brand I was telling you about, that it's basically timeless. It's been around forever, and the logo even is old fashioned, but it's been updated and it stands the test of time. The NBA, that's a classic logo. I forget the company that has this UN sun son something. And then Nike, I told the swoosh story in June, but I'll tell it again. Carolyn Davidson was a design student hired by her professor to create a logo for a shoe company that he was wanting to start. And in 1971, he paid her $35 for this logo. But eventually, the company celebrated her with a party and gave her stock in the company that's now worth over $1 million and a gold diamond ring with the swoosh design on it. So she did get compensated eventually. So let's talk about FedEx's logo. Lyndon Leader designed it, and he basically formed these proprietary letter forms that were based on a couple of, I think, Franklin Gothic and Universe. He kind of used those as a basis, but they are totally redone. The X height, which is the height from the baseline to the top of the lowercase character, is different from typical, and the way they position the branches of the F and the E is different. And he did that in order to form the arrow out of the white space. And it's ingenious. I mean, people are just in the design world go, wow, all the time about the FedEx logo and the arrow. Some people even go so far as saying, well, then there's this spoon too that the E makes. And I'm like, no, that's not part of it. But anyway, the idea that he had, the Federal Express logo, people had already started saying FedEx it as a verb, and they were shortening Federal Express to FedEx. And so Lyndon Leader capitalized on that fact and just shortened it to FedEx and used that. And he just saw that arrow in there and capitalized on that and made this classic, amazing logo that's so simple yet so original and unique. So, okay, AT&T. We've recognized AT&T with a globe, but it's changed over the years. Originally, in 1983, when they came out with this globe, it was, for 1983 standards, that was typical. These lines that went from thick to thin to thick was a thing. A lot of people were doing it, but it's also, if you think about it, it's kind of complex, so that when you reduce it down, you lose the lines. And so when you blow it up, it's not quite so good. And so they tried to fix that in 1999 by making it a little bit bigger and further apart. And they also added the shading and made it more three-dimensional with the shading and everything like that. But that still doesn't translate very well on websites and mobile devices and that sort of thing. So in 2005, they did a different one with a little bit more of a three-dimensional look. They have the lines going around in the back, so it looks like a see-through globe. And that's pretty cool, but it's also complex and makes it difficult to put on other, do one or two colors, that sort of thing. So in 2016, they finally came up with a globe that works with the mobile device market and everything else. And this is just an example of how technology has pushed the logo in a simplified direction. And this is also an example of a logo, of a symbol icon, that logo mark that can stand alone and people recognize it, just like the arches on the M with McDonald's. It's simple, it's versatile, it's recognizable, and it's timeless. Okay, Amazon is kind of an interesting case because early on they came up with this A that with a river going through it. So they were being quite literal with the Amazon. They wanted the A, the stand for Amazon, and the river going through it. So because it's like the Amazon River. And it just, I mean, yeah, it's okay. It's an okay logo. But then they came up with all these other iterations of it that just made it more complicated. And originally, Amazon was a bookseller, only a bookseller. They didn't have all this other stuff. And so when they started doing more, they did change to the Amazon.com. Excuse me. Let me get a drink. And that's when they did the swoosh. And then Turner Duckworth noticed when he was working with it and it was swishing around in his head for a few days, he was like, now they're not just booksellers. They do everything from A to Z, and A and Z are in this name. How can I capitalize on that A to Z? And so he, eventually thought of an arrow, and he probably drew the arrow. I can just imagine him drawing that arrow from A to Z and then going, oh, that looks like a smile. And then changing it to that. I can just see the process, and I'm like, oh, how ingenious is that? And it kind of makes me wish that, I had something like that I could come up with like that, because it's pretty cool. So basically there's a smile, and they use that smile by itself all the time. And they also use a logo where they have AZ and a smile under it. So it's basically, they have everything from A to Z at Amazon.com. Talk about brand strategy. Okay, and here's the Starbucks. Now, Starbucks was founded back in 1971 by these three partners who wanted to name it after a ship in Moby Dick, the Pequod ship in Moby Dick that had, and the shipmate was Starbuck. So they changed it to Starbucks instead of Pequod because, that was kind of a weird name. And it's because the sirens, which is depicted by the double-tailed mermaid, the sirens drew people to the island to, but it's, for them, it was like people are going to be drawn to them for their coffee. And that's pretty much what has happened. I mean, it is like a siren, it just draws us there whenever we see that symbol. And in 87, they simplify, 87 is when, what's his name? Howard Schultz bought the company in 87. And he had another company called, what's the name of his other? Something. Anyway, it had the circular thing around it that had just the name of it and the coffee. And so and it had a bunch of stars. And so I kind of combined the two into one logo. And then in 1992, they simplified it even more by zooming in on the mermaid. And by the way, the 1971 mermaid was a little too risque. So that when they changed it in 87, they had the hair covering up the you-know-whats. But now in 2011 and on, we recognize just the mermaid as Starbucks. We don't need the Starbucks coffee or anything else around it. Also, originally it was like Starbucks coffee, Starbucks tea, Starbucks spice, and now all of it just has Starbucks coffee on it, whether it's tea, spice, coffee, whatever. Everything is Starbucks coffee. So what I want to say here is that simplify. Now, today, logos need to tell a story in the most simple way possible. Because there's so many different ways to use a logo, so many different ways to recognize a logo, and simplicity is the key. So I have lots of time left, don't I? What is the time? Well, we'll have lots of questions. So next week I was going to start on the visual elements of brand identity. We touched on that in June, but I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about that. Does anybody have any questions? Do we want to, here, let me do my thing again.
Cute. Go ahead.
I have a question. So I love logos. I love the stories behind the logos. As far as Starbucks, you know, this mermaid, as far as the symbol, it's also about this voyage. It's about, you know, where they get their coffees from all over the world. It signifies not just, you know, but the logo and the brand, but it signifies a personality and a spirit behind the logo. And I think Swoosh from Nike has the same thing. Harley Davidson, you know, you immediately see like the logo and you think open road, you know, easy rider, right? You just do. So as we try to build out, I have a logo for one of my brands, but I don't have a logo for like my main brand. And I've really struggled with how do you find, you know, what are the questions you ask yourself? You know, what are the questions we should be asking ourselves as entrepreneurs to find that essence and that spirit so we get it right?
I will be. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, just go ahead. What are some questions?
I will be talking about that in part 3.
Okay.
So,
well, I mean, can
Janie,
you give us a sneak peek?
On that client form and brief and everything that you start with, I mean, before we even get there next week or whatever, tell us some of the questions that are on there. What are some of the jumpstart questions that are on there to get us to start thinking of our logo and our brand and our...
Let me open that and I'll let you know. Let's see. That's a good question.
Because, well, I mean, I think one of my encouragements, and y'all just jump in here, we have a few people so we can just talk in, is seeing these huge companies evolve with their brand kind of gives me a little permission that, you know, that it's okay that it wasn't rock solid, etched in stone, you know, the same all the way through. I will tell you that, and Janie already knows some of my brand stories. I think that as she's looking at those questions, Lou, part of it is starting the conversation, right? And as your graphic designer kind of discovers who you are and what your culture, you know, the ambiance is like and what your passions are and where you're headed. So I'll give you an example. Darcy White used to be a member of NACWE, and she designed my counseling associates logo. And basically I just sat her down and said, you know, I want my family on there somehow. I want people to understand that our counseling office will counsel an entire family, not just an individual, not just a couple, not a little kid, the whole family. I want to do that, and it was so much fun to have the whole team in there. And so I showed her a picture of our wedding. Fred and I, both widowed and remarried, and so Fred is standing there, I'm standing there, I have a boy, girl, boy beside me, and he has a boy, girl, boy beside him. And when she first mocked that up, if that's a word, it was stick figures like you would find on the bathroom door, you know, shapes of people, not really people. And I just kept appealing to her, I want them to look real, I want them to look real. And so she literally took our wedding photo and kind of outlined some of our people and came up with her own design. And then I told her I really want people to understand that we're a Christian counseling office, a biblical counseling office, and therefore any counsel we offer should be at least founded on the Word of God. And so we put a book under us. And of course, it didn't look like a Bible, it just looked like a book. And so she kind of kept tweaking it and tweaking it. I love that. I think it came out exactly like I would have wanted it the first time since, oh my goodness, 2007. I've never changed that logo. I've had someone do a ceramic tile of it for me, and I asked them to add that turquoise aqua color that we're, so in love with now, and it really isn't on my website anywhere. But in that, she added that into the sky, and it's just amazing. She does amazing mosaic tiles for little nothing. So, I mean, I love the way that we have permission to let it evolve. I think it starts with a conversation. I'm glad you're going to talk more about that, Janie, later. So, did you find your
Yeah.
There it is. Ah, okay.
Okay, so I have them do the logo name and what's the business name, what's the meaning behind the name, your business purpose, adjectives, what do you, why do you want a new logo or branding? That's for when they're rebranding. Who's your ideal client, target audience? What makes your business unique? What do your clients love about collaborating with you? It just makes people think about it, gets them started by thinking about these things. What's your client's target audience's most basic problem? Because we're here to solve problems. And what is your solution for it? Goals you have for your business. How do you think you will expand in the future? Because expanding in the future has a lot to do with it, because a logo that you have now for like say you want to help people like me, I want to help startups brand their company. Okay. Well, 5 years from now, I may be just working for those startups that I've already branded and not really branding new startups, because I'm working for the startups that I branded. So maybe further on down the road, my target audience is people that already have a brand or something, I'm just thinking out loud. Mm-hmm. But basically your audience may change over time, and you may want it to change over time because of the way you're positioning yourself. And so you want a logo that's going to grow with you and have that change happen over time.
So just as you're talking through these questions, one of the things I realize is that the tagline of Raymond Counseling Associates really doesn't complement, it doesn't do any harm, but it doesn't complement the logo. So now I have a new idea, just hearing you talk and process some of these concepts. Now I have a new idea for a different tagline for the counseling office. I love it.
Very good, yeah. Okay, so where will your logo primarily be used? A lot of times, people say, I'm only going to use it on the website. Well, you need to really think about that, because website logos, like for instance, you can go all out on a website logo and do color and whatever you want. But say you want that same logo on a pen. It has to be brought down to one color or two colors at the most. And so how does that logo translate to one or two colors? And they want to embroider a cap. Well, you can't, it's too costly to embroider it in a whole bunch of different colors. So you need to have options for other types of logos. And a lot of what I do when I design a logo, I have to keep in mind that I might need to reduce it to black and white or to one or two colors. And so I try to design it in that way where you can have the colorful, fun logo, but also have options for the other things too. How do you prefer the logo be worded or written out? Like, for instance, like on this concrete construction, that is a logo I designed actually. And so concrete on one line and construction underneath it. Do you want to emphasize any particular words? Do you have a tagline? Who are your competitors? Do you have color preferences or existing brand colors? You have colors that you want to steer away from. Some people don't like certain colors. And sometimes I've even gone so far as if there's a color they want to steer away from, yet it's a color that identifies their brand or speaks to their brand, I'll say, this is really a color that you need to have because it's a color that speaks to your brand. And they'll either say, well, I still don't want it, or they'll say, well, okay, maybe, So I don't, just because this is just a starting point, it doesn't mean it's all etched in stone.
Mhm.
And then I have them think about brands that they love, that they already love, and why. I want to know why they love these brands, and that gives me an idea of their personality and who they are. Some people don't like certain typefaces and fonts. They don't want scripty, or they don't want too masculine, or that sort of thing. Just I want to put that out there so I can make sure that I'm not. So I understand what their expectations are with fonts. Let's say it's a girly business and a scripty font works best. I might say, you might want to consider that. But you want to keep, okay. And any details or creative consideration.
When you're the featured NACWE person, we're going to have all the members be featured in one day this year or of the year in on the non-member page as well. You have to put these in there somehow. Okay. This needs to be a download that they have to get on your list to get it or something, because that is just my mind is just spinning and spinning with all of these questions. Okay. Anybody else got a question for her that we haven't?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. You said that in branding you need a team. And I'm finding that out because I've already talked to a social media person to help, because I like social media, but I've never necessarily had a social media strategy.
Yeah.
I try to get it going, and I have these things thought out, but I don't do it ahead of time. So I'm just kind of like, what I'm putting out there is what's happening in the moment, which I like to do, but I need more of a brand strategy to go with programs and back them out and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I can't get someone to help me with social media because I don't have my brand figured out yet. And I have all these ideas, based on my experience. So who is the first person you want to connect with before? That's where I'm at to figure out all that stuff.
Well, there's several things. I mean, there's just a plethora of ways that you can go about it. But I have an associate that I work with, a partner of mine, per se. I mean, we partner, we collaborate on projects, and she's a marketing strategist. And so, by the way, I'm just going to pitch this real quick. She told me she's doing a $7.95 special for a marketing strategy, if anybody's interested. And that's a really good deal. $795 for the analysis and the whole strategy for your business. Now that does not, I don't think that includes, I'm pretty sure that does not include social media strategy. Social media strategy is kind of a brand strategy portion, or social media strategy as a portion of the brand strategy is separate. And somebody who does that should be able to do it for you very well, and help you schedule it, help you write it, help you figure it all out. But it does help to have a brand strategy first. Now, you can do your brand. You can do the route of just doing the brand identity, which is what I do. And I have different pricing structures for that too, starting at $300 to do a brand identity.
And are those on your website, or your packages or offerings on your website?
They're not on my website right this minute. I took them down because I wanted to tweak them but here, I'll put something up. I'll put something up here. Let's see.
So would you want to do ideally the marketing strategy first and then the brand identity, or?
You don't have to, but it would help if you had a strategy. But if you can answer those questions on my questionnaire, then we can start on it. Sometimes the marketing strategy is best done when you're like starting to be established more, and you can kind of know what it is. Sometimes people do the marketing strategy before they even start business, though. So it really just depends on where you're at financially.
Well, let me ask you this, because my second question may determine which way I would go first.
Okay.
Previously, I had KimberlyDelCoco.com. I still do. But I also had Tri-State Women, which was a women's organization that I had that was for all women, not business oriented. And then I had different, like my retreat was Living Hell to Living Well. And I had all these different programs that I did. And I always felt like I should have I never had like a separate website for the women's organization, but it always felt like I needed to have a separate website for the women's organization. And I don't love having KimberlyDelCoco.com, but I've been told, to have that as your brand.
People are going toward that. Yeah.
Huh?
A lot of people are moving toward that whole branding yourself as your brand. I mean, I do it, but I do it because I couldn't think of anything better.
Well, right. And that's the thing. It's like, okay, KimberlyDelCoco.com was available. And it wasn't, because I do have ideas for names, but they're like $3,000 for the domain name, or they're not available anymore. There's already, and so I was just like, I'm just going to be Kimberly. And but I struggle with the whole, as a Christian, like, the whole,
pride.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So is that something I would need to do in the brand identity before I even start thinking about marketing strategy?
Well, actually, that's kind of your marketing strategy right there. Is trying to decide, what it is where you want to go. Because if we do your brand identity and then you decide that you don't want to be Kimberly Del Coco, then we got a problem, because we got to start over on the brand identity. So you probably need to start with brand strategy and make sure that you're doing what you really
So that's the person that will help me brainstorm out like which way I want to go. And do I want to do Christian? Do I want to do business? Do I want to do, because that's the thing that I'd wrestle with every day and causes me great anxiety.
Right. A marketing or brand strategist would help you with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Definitely.
So, and I'm in the same boat as Kimberly. So, and I know Karen was too. And I think we all probably were at one point. And I spoke with Sylvia Flores, the one who spoke a couple of weeks ago. And she said, create the 2 pages. So I've got 2 websites. One's built, one's not. But she said, but you're related to both. And so there should be some sort of like cohesive, visual. Doesn't mean the exact logo. It doesn't mean, but there should be something that says, oh, this is the flavor of Lou, in this other business end as well. And so it may, for me, I'm just looking at it like it's a lot to manage both identities, but at the same time, I think they're 2 separate birds, but they're still part of me. And so I think it's just, that was, but yeah, I don't have the answers. I need to see a brand strategist as well.
Yeah, you could definitely have 2 different brand identities that are kind of meshed. I did that for Brenda Love. And then after I did that for Brenda Love, the 2 different identities, then she got a strategist. Now it's 1. So now we combine the 2 into 1. So that's why I'm saying if you do the identity first, yeah, you'll get going and everything, and I can help you with the identity, but once it's done, and it looks great and everything, and then you got it, and then you think, well, maybe this isn't what I want to do, and then it's a total redo.
It's
So,
it's an evolutionary process
Yeah.
all over again. But just this conversation brings me back to how important I think it is, Kimberly, to have KimberlyDelCoco.com or LouCrawlchip.com, KarenBorg.com, because let's say you do go out and you do the women's ministry website, or the Living Well retreat website and that sort of thing. Those could change. You could come up one day and say, look, I don't want to do another retreat in my entire life, shut this thing down. But you still get to define who you are under Kimberly Del Coco. And if that involves retreats, you're sending people off to the retreat site. And if that involves a women's ministry, you're sending people off to. I like that about now that it took me 4 years after several coaches told me, get KarenBorg.com. And now I'm seeing the wisdom in that. It's not where I live still. 90% of the time I live in NACWE land. A few percentage points of the time I live with the publishing company and KarenBorg.com and the counseling agency. Really, those are not my primary homes right now, but they're still there, and I get to tweak them any way I want to. I kind of like that. Now I'm wondering also, because you just said, whoever just said it, Lou, you said it. I'm wondering if it's obvious to the public that there's a connection between that, other than I'm saying on each website, go look here, go look there. Gosh, so much to think about. So I had a question. I don't know if it's a question but you were talking through all of these brands and all of these logos, and I was so fascinated with how they changed over time. I never noticed, maybe it's just me, I never noticed that was an arrow in that FedEx logo.
Oh, you didn't?
And
I didn't either, Karen.
No. Okay, thank you. And I thought, I never noticed. I did get the
Design
Amazon.
world noticed.
Well, of
I'm
course,
sure.
and we would expect you to, because we need your eye. We need your perspective and your ability to see things like that, because that's how we get creative. That's how we come up with. I'm not going to come up with an arrow for me. So here's an example. Janie designed we should have popped it up here, Raymond Publishing House logo. Somebody emailed me the other day and said, how did your graphic designer get that thing inside, the circle part where it looks like the book is kind of coming open? And I'm like, I have a logo where it looks like the book is the pages of the book are opening? I had no idea. So I'm going and looking at my logo and thinking, Janie, you're a freaking genius. How did you do that? And I didn't know that even existed. Some people are going to notice that detail. I didn't ever think of that little angel thing being a siren with mermaid. I never got that. So I'm just thinking how important it, but I'll tell you what, when I see that Starbucks logo, or when I see the Amazon logo, or when I see FedEx, I know exactly, like you said, they don't even have to put their name on the logo anymore. I know exactly, Nike, swoosh, I know exactly who they are. How important is it? I recognize it's important, but how important is it that those elements are obvious to other people?
Because
Yeah,
that's your
like I would have
story.
wished the FedEx logo would make that arrow yellow, because I would see it, and I would love that, but I've never noticed it.
Yeah.
At all.
Or I was thinking, can you outline it a little bit? Just a teeny.
Yeah, right. Make it
That
distinct.
defeats the purpose of white space. Because negative space is what it is. It's called negative space. And how you've seen those examples where it looks like a vase. There's black and then white in the middle. Well, but it also looks like two people looking at each other. Mm-hmm. So you can see the negative space created this vase, but it's also two people looking at each other. So
do we really need to talk about our logo and the elements of our logo to our customers? Probably not, right? They still get it. They just get it at different levels and in different ways, and it still attracts them. We just need to make sure it attracts them.
But I look at Starbucks, and I mean, I'm fascinated by their logo because I studied a bunch of stuff about archetypes and stuff. And this whole mermaid thing, while it was very obvious in the beginning that it was a mermaid, over time it's been simplified to a girl or a woman. But you recognize it as something old. You recognize it as it's this Norse mermaid, right? And you recognize that it's something that was on a ship probably, or a mast or something. It was something that was taking you somewhere else, but it was also the mermaid's purpose is to call you and draw you close, right? The mermaid would take the sailors off their beaten path and draw them in, and that is what Starbucks does. So I think when you say, is it important that they know the story? I think it's charming. I think it adds a connection, because then it adds the storyline, the thing that compels you to go, I'm a fan of them. So I think that not all logos have a story. I mean, all logos have a story. Sometimes they're just not obvious, but the minute you start to see, I mean, right now you're like, oh, I think I could go to UPS or I can go to FedEx. Now, there's this arrow in their logo, and you found a little story in there that compels you to go, I'll go with them. So it does matter. It's just, how do you don't blast it,
Yeah.
So
just like with Ladybug, what does a ladybug have to do with graphic design? But the story that I haven't told in this session, but the story behind my ladybug is that my name is Bugh, and a long time ago I entered a chat room as Janie Bugh, and somebody said ladybug in the house, and that just stuck with me. So now I've always been ladybug, and then I looked up, the ladybug stands for luck. But really, it's more of a spiritual nature, because the ladybugs ate the aphids off the plants and saved the farmer's crop. And so they looked at the ladybug as the Virgin Mary coming to save them. And that's where the name came from. So anyway, to me, it's just endearing to me, because my kids call me my grandkids call me Ladybug. And so.
But I see it. And I go, there's a story in there. I don't know what the story is, but I can see it, and I go, there's something there.
Yeah, and I want to know what it is. I'm going to interrupt this because I can't stay in chat, so I have to stop things. But who's 804? Who's our person on the phone? We want to know who you are. You're unmuted.
Hey, it's Judy Reed, and I couldn't get in through Zoom. It said you all were on another meeting.
Oh.
So I decided to call, but thank you for the information. When you all asked the question in the Facebook page, what is your tagline? I was excited to put my self-esteem dream coach in, but now that I'm hearing what you all are saying, my logo is actually a tulip, which stands for turn up the light into his presence and let it shine. So I think I was confused about a tagline as it related to a logo. So
me too. I think that's where Lou and Kimberly and all of us who are I'm refining, and some of y'all are starting over. I think that's where people like Janie come in. Because, I had no idea what my KarenBoard.com logo was it doesn't look anything like, except the colors are the same, my dream. But it just evolved, and I personally need someone who's artistic, who sees things from a different angle than I do, and who reads what I've written and sees something in me that maybe I didn't even discover before. I can't wait to continue this conversation. My challenge, I think the challenge is somewhere on our NACWE pages. You can do it on the fan page, or actually for you to write on the fan page, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody who understands social media better than I do. I think I have to put a picture of you there, and you have to write underneath that picture. We'll do that. If you want that done, you can put a picture, I will do it. But do it on either page or both if you want to. We're getting ready to interact a lot more as members in the non-member group, because there's 12,000 people in there. Hello. But the challenge is, besides keeping the bugs off of me, speaking of Janie Owen-Bugh, the challenge is tell your logo or an element of your logo story this week. And if you don't have a logo yet and you're still coming up with it, come up with a piece of it that you know you have to have. I've got to have this. I mean, I'm not sure, Lou, how you depict culture in the logo, but it'll evolve, it'll come. But pick a piece of it and tell a story, either under the posted replay for today or something, because this is exciting stuff for me. I mean, I started.
I'll share my little logo, and it's about people. I mean, people are people, culture is people, you know, and a lot of that. Yeah, it's hard. How do you refine that? Not just have like a plop of a map, you know, like what is it, you know? And it's tiny little details.
Everybody touched on it today. The story is so crucial. We're not telling the story. I mean, every time now that you talk about culture, I think of people lifting the table. I want to take my family to a local restaurant and pick the table up in front of everybody. We're willing to do that.
Yeah.
We will do that. It will be on video.
I'll lock the door so the police don't get us, okay?
Well, we need to go somewhere where they're not going to get all riled up because the table got moved. You know? But God blesses everyone. Thank you, Janie. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to see. I mean, the wheels are just turning. I hate having to get up from this without processing some of this. But I usually do sit here and process a little bit, and I'm not going to get to do it today. So watch for the posted replay. Ask some more questions under there. Thank you, Janie, a million times.
Thank you.
And everybody that was here, God bless.